Um, you get a double dose of me today, or not today, but on this retreat. So yesterday I talked about Evan's vision for evolution. Well, not really his vision for evolution necessarily, but what I focused on specifically was his initial post. He titled this. He titled his project the first self-funding, self-governing cryptocurrency, and I kind of summarized that as a sovereign economy. Now I know that that's not exactly right, but he wanted to build a cryptocurrency project, which is a monetary system, and I'm expanding that to be more than just money. I think if you remember from the last video, he said this is so much more than a privacy project, and he talked about how he developed the superblock system and basically got people working for the organization, 20 people at the time, and probably is about the same right now. So I'm calling that. And then the other clip that I shared was he talked about how it was important to make sure that this was sovereign, that we didn't have any outside influences on the project. And I think that was his key innovation as far as this project goes, is the building of the labor force to go along with the capital force of the monetary system. So once again, just a few thank yous to those who contributed to this. So the big elephant in the room, which kind of prompted this whole this whole meetup, this whole retreat, was that a lot of people were kind of getting stir crazy or having the bear market blues because Dash market capitalization was approaching that 100 level market rank, and we actually, I think, even dipped below it at one point, and so that like freaked everybody out, and people were saying like, what's going on? Like, if Dash passes the first page of market cap, then we're doomed. And I think that there's some truth to that. So the main problem here that I would like to help address is this market capitalization. But then there's also the issue of the community engagement. That's also dwindling. So we just don't have as many people. As I shared some of the things, the posts from Evan, I was going to actually talk about this yesterday, where there were so many people involved in the projects. There were just so many people liking and commenting on the forums. We don't see that anymore. Like the forums are I understand we've moved to Discord to some degree, and so that kind of made the forum a little bit less popular, but still it seemed like there were a lot more people involved back then. And then we have developer burnout and missed deadlines. So how can we solve these problems? I have a few very simply stated solutions that are almost obvious, that they are obvious. So the problem to Dash market capitalization falling is obviously increase the capitalization of Dash. How do you do that? Market capitalization is a product of two things: the price of a unit and the number of those units. So you can increase the price, which is the quality of Dash, or you can increase the units, which is the quantity of Dash, quality. Number two, increase the community engagement. So how do you do that? You make Dash more useful, obviously. I think a lot of people had very big visions of like how we were going to use this new currency and it was going to take off and everybody was going to start using it. Make Dash more exciting. So that has to do with innovation, obviously, but it also has to do with just getting people involved in the project. And that was one of the things that Evan was so good at, was getting people excited and involved and integrated into the project. And then the third problem, developer burnout, multiple missed deadlines. We need to increase the developer competition and compensation. I think part of the problem with well, I'll just say DCG, but also in the incubator and also other developers, there's just not enough of us. Like there's not enough competition. There's not enough resources in general. If you talk to Sam or if you talk to me, we'll both tell you the same thing. We don't have enough resources to work with. You can't expect us to, have exciting developers if you're paying them peanuts and you're consistently like decreasing their pay because we have the market capitalization problems, and that's just not good for anybody's excitement level. It's not good for morale. When people start getting paid less, they feel like they're less valuable, which obviously stands to reason. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about, on the slides you see this abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But I think that we actually need to pay developers more. Like, we need to increase their salary. That will increase their morale. That will increase their productivity. That will increase their excitement in the project. We don't need to stop. We don't need to pay them less. Like, that's what we have been doing. We're cutting people. I understand it's sometimes necessary to cut people that aren't doing anything or even causing problems in an organization. That's not what I'm saying. But the ones who really are, they don't deserve pay cuts. They deserve pay increases. Like, this is a very unique project, and very few people are capable and interested in doing it. So one of the things is, like, when you pay people, you're investing in developers, and pay is part of that. Like, the loyalty that comes along with that, the mindset that comes along with that's an investment into people, and that it's important. And then on the flip side, so pay higher and pay longer. What I mean by that is a lot of people in companies, especially startup companies, they're not just paid a salary. They're also paid with equity. So, and that equity usually has a vesting period. 2 years, 3 years, whatever, however many years, you have to work with that company and put in the time, and then you get that equity share, you get that ownership share. We could do the same thing with just Dash itself and just time locking Dash, but that increases their compensation in general. It might not, like, maybe we don't have the salary for it, but we can increase their time locked Dash. So I'm not going to go into detail about that, but yeah, like, vesting periods for compensation, I think, is an interesting idea to pursue later. So the strategy going forward, I think if you take a step back, you have to, like, I think that we all need to get on the same page about what we're actually trying to accomplish here. What are we trying to accomplish? We need to stop thinking about Dash as a company and everything that goes around with that. We need to start thinking about Dash as an economy. Here. This is my this is a theme that I've kind of pounded over the past few years, but I still see evidence of people thinking of Dash as a company instead of an economy. In a company, a company will typically raise money either from angel investors or venture capital, and that gets them started. You need a certain amount of energy and resources and compensation to even start a company and have it have any chance of winning. So you need a certain amount of compensation to work with to get a good team that can actually accomplish something. But so then that company, it's focused on making products and services, and then they get revenue through those products and services to offset their cost, and then hopefully they're profitable. And then if they're profitable, then their stock shares probably go up in value, and then eventually the people who invested early on, they can sell their shares and they can have their, that's basically how a company works. That's how the initial funders of the project get their compensation, is through the equity. But in an economy, it's a different mindset, and that different mindset, it has big implications. So you're not actually raising money. We don't want to raise, like Evan said, we don't want to raise money from other people. We want to raise, what you really need to do is you need to you need to raise a labor force. That's actually what creates a value in an economy. You think of the US dollar system, think of the Euro system, think of the Japanese system. Like, you're not concerned with revenues. The economy isn't concerned with revenues. It's concerned with your monetary unit and its exchange rate on global foreign exchange markets. And to do that, you just create money. You create money in order to raise the labor force, and then the labor force creates the value, and then that value goes back into the currency. So ultimately, the goal, or what's necessary, is you need to expand the money supply to expand the goods supply. And I'm going to be talking about that with this whiteboard behind me, if you can see that, if you can't, but we'll go into that, like why raising the money supply can also raise the goods supply and not decrease the price of the ash. So, but first, I want to talk about like money itself, just in general. Who is winning in the money game? Commodities, gold, silver, cows, shells, these have all been used as money in the past. I'm not going to go through that history. We all know that. There's fiat, there's US dollars, euros, Japanese yen, and then there's crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dash. Who's winning? Well, gold lost. Why did gold lose? It was the best commodity. It was way better than cows. It lasted for a long time, but it did not. This is not what we think of as money. We're not using gold these days, especially past 1971, when the money is not even backed by gold. So I want to know why gold failed. It was very ideal, except for transportability, I think. But gold didn't circulate. It doesn't circulate today. And I don't think that the limited supply helps. So there's this big mantra in cryptocurrency that limited supply, limited supply, limited supply. That's all that matters. That's how you create the value, is you keep the supply limited. I think the opposite, actually. Money, fiat won the money game. It's winning, and it has won. And why? The banking system uses, the banking system early on, it used gold as an asset to offset their deposit liabilities. So think of what you will about fractional reserve banking and the morality or immorality of fractional reserve banking. What happened. So just look at the scorecard, like who's winning? Well, fiat's winning. And it did that by a series of events that led to gold not being actually used in circulation, but just used as one of many assets on a bank's balance sheet that offsets their liabilities and gives the banks equity. But banks, there's an extreme demand from the market to expand the currency supply, because people wanted loans, and loans are an asset to the bank. So the bank, they want the loan because it's an asset for them, because it's a constant stream of revenue for them. And the banks were happy to satisfy that demand by creating new currency. They do that. They just create currency out of thin air. And a lot of people think that that's a problem, but I think that that's actually how they won. They actually won by increasing the money supply, because that got that money, their credit, into circulation. So the unlimited supply actually helped them, not a limited supply. So what about crypto? Can crypto actually win in the money game? That's the question. So like I said, fiat won for good reasons. It wasn't just all manipulation and fraud, and the banking system is totally corrupt, which it is, but that's not, there are actually valid and honorable banking functions. And I think that that's why they won, is they were serving customer demand for loans and things like that. So crypto, I think we have a lot to learn from fiat. So we take a lot of cues, and we think that gold was the best, and so that's what Satoshi Nakamoto modeled his money supply after, a fixed supply, and I think that was the wrong approach. And I think Evan Duffield started the right approach by just having, hey, let's create, in his explanation, he actually, I think, was still kind of buying into the fixed money supply when he created the treasury system, because he said, hey, this isn't inflationary because we're carving it off of what would otherwise go to miners. And that's true, but that's why I'm here to say we need to supercharge it, actually. We need to take that concept that he started by, hey, let's create some money and raise a labor force, but let's supercharge that and lift the limit. Why limit yourself? If something is valuable, if an incremental amount of Dash created creates value in the currency, why limit yourself? Why say, I'm going to limit the value that I can create? Doesn't make sense. So everybody will say, especially delusional maximalists of any stripe, but Bitcoiners are the worst in this sense. They'll say Bitcoin is the best money invented. We just need time to have people adopt it. Well, it's not going to happen. Nobody's going to be adopting Bitcoin as money. Any respectable economist will tell you Bitcoin's not even money, period. Not let alone is it the best money. It's not the best money. It's not even money. It's not even the worst money. It's not money. Why is it not money? Because it's not circulating. It's not actually used as the exchange medium in the society. What is money? Fiat. That's the best money. That's what we need to learn from. What do? They increase their money supply. They raise labor force. The labor force creates value. The value then goes back into the money. And that's how fiat won. So Ethereum and smart contracts, they're not even trying. They're not even in the market. They're off doing revenue, cost revenue, businessy kind of things. They're trying to create profitable businesses for the VCs that have invested in them, or from their self-funded capital. That also happens. But they're trying to find fees. They're trying to find revenue. That's not how an economy works. That's how a company works. So they're not even in the game. Stable coins, I just consider stable coins as stable cons and stale coins. It's either a stale coin, which means it's not appreciating like it should be. A coin should be appreciating, not depreciating. Stable coin is just tethering yourself to a falling rock. That's not a good idea. Or they're just straight up stable cons. So it's like it's stable and then boom, rug pull. So I'm not into the stable coin thing. I want a monetary system that appreciates in value and is not tethered down literally to the value of a dollar. And I also don't want a stable coin that's, I'm open to having the conversation about stable coins on Dash, but what is that going to do? You're going to stabilize the Dash stable coin at the expense of making the Dash currency even more volatile, which does not help for Dash as a currency because people want stability. So we need to fix that as well. I would like that fixed in the Dash unit, not in the stable coin built on the Dash infrastructure. That's kind of like thinking of Dash as a company again and trying to provide a service, a product and a service for people, which is a stable coin. It's actually more like a euro dollar system or shadow banking. That's what that is. I don't really want Dash to become that. So Dash is almost the only player in this field. We just have to know how to actually to play this game of trying to be a new currency, a new economy. So all we have to do is kind of do it. It's open for us, but we can't do that. We have no chance in beating fiat unless we have some major changes, and that major change has to do with our money supply. So Dash can win. We need to do what fiat does. We need to provide the venture capital functions. Venture capital is a very important industry. If you didn't watch Sven's talk yesterday, you need to. It was very insightful to me. The big number that I came out with, and I haven't reviewed it yet, but the big number that I came out with is we're sitting at an 8.1x return on investment. If all the assumptions, he gave I'm not going to give his talk again, but you read that and So in other words, we invested some Dash, and what we invested, that is more valuable. Okay, so the Dash that we created to go to the diff was actually creating value for Dash. Like if we could, and again, this is a long-term, like investment is a long-term thing, but in theory, once we got all of those investments to a liquid state, we could sell all that, all the dollars value, all the dollar value for Dash. That would push the price of Dash up. We could do that. Not necessarily saying we should do that, but that's what we could do, and that's where the value would come. So you have to think of Dash like, are we in it for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or are we in this for like our kids? Are we trying to create a new economy that our kids and our grandkids can use? This is a 20, 40 year, 100-year, whatever, 400-year project. And we get the opportunity of seizing that opportunity. So I think a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, money supply, like increasing the money supply, that's heresy. So I'm going to just do a quick little, I don't know how much time I have, but I'm just going to take some time because I know we start late. So everybody probably sees this slide. This is a typical demand. This is a typical supply and demand curve. Sorry, thank you. I was drawing a blank here for a minute. And I'm just going to do some basic, I was going to spend a lot more time on this, but I think what I'm drawing now isn't going to change, isn't going to like increase the validity of my arguments so far. What I've said in verbally is basically good enough, but to put it a little bit more, to make it a little bit more concrete, graphical sometimes can help. So you have a typical supply demand curve. This is supply, this is demand. Demand is downward sloping and supply is upward sloping. And here you have quantity of something, and here you have the price of that something. So I've seen some talk here. Can you see the screen? Are we good? Yeah. We good? Okay. So let's talk about the price of Dash in terms of US dollars per Dash. And then let's talk about the quantity of this thing as the quantity of Dash. So you have the supply of Dash and the demand for Dash. Now, typically these curves are like this, right? You have a downward sloping demand curve, which means that at a low price, like right here, this price, people will demand more of the thing. Now, you kind of have to, this works for Dash because it can work for Dash. It can work for any good. But if you're having a hard time thinking about it, like you can think of something like bananas. Like if the price of a banana is lower, then I'm going to demand more bananas. I want more bananas if they're not as costly. If they're very expensive, I'm not going to want hardly anything. So at this higher price, let's call it P2 and P1, I have a lower demand. I demand fewer of them. Fewer Dash or bananas, whatever you're thinking about. In supply, in typical goods, you have a demand supply curve that's upward sloping, meaning at higher prices, suppliers, producers, they want to produce and sell more of that thing because it's more revenue for them, and they have typically fixed costs, and so any kind of increased revenue is better for their bottom line. So if you're having a higher price, then you're going to supply more of those to increase your profits. At a lower price, you're not going to supply as many of those things. So that's why supply is upward sloping. But in monetary systems, especially cryptocurrencies, you typically see demand curves or supply curves rather, that are straight, vertical, completely vertical. Why? because, oh, and this point right here is the market clearing price. It just means like the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied are at the same price. That clears the market. There's no surpluses. There's no shortages. But why is the supply curve for a monetary system like Dash, why is it vertical? Because we're just supplying the same amount, regardless of what the price is. Like the blocks just come out. The price has no impact on how much we're supplying. We're supplying a specific rate at any given time. These are always snapshots in time. So at some certain point in time, it's not like we're going to decide, oh, we're going to make blocks, we're going to produce more Dash in this block. We don't do that. So it's a vertical supply. Now what happens? So, and this is where a lot of people in cryptocurrency and in the gold bug community, they'll say, look at this. If we increase the supply, increase the quantity of our currency, that decreases the price. So like here, the market clearing price was some amount. We'll just call it P. And then if we increase the supply for any given demand period, if we increase the supply, what happens to the price? It goes down. And that's why people think that increasing the supply of a currency will always just decrease the value of that currency. And, you know, all things other being equal, that is true. So there's this phrase that goes around called ceteris paribus. All things being equal, if you increase the supply, the price does go down. But this is my problem with the Austrians. I love the Austrians, and I think that they're, for the most part, they're right in their economic analyses. But the problem is, all things are not equal. Well, they never are, and they wouldn't be in the scenario that I'm describing. So to make it very clear what I'm describing, I'm saying that we basically should not have a coin supply limit. We should allow masternode owners in the treasury, in the superblock, every month. People request funding for certain things. If we think that that's valuable, and that's going to add value to the currency, why would we not create the currency to enable them to do that? Whether we require them to do the thing before we create the currency, or whether we have legal contracts in place so that we own the equity of their company through something like the diff, or people build reputations and you trust that they're actually going to deliver value. Whatever your mechanism for deciding that, if you can say, hey, this person, Elon Musk asks for 2,000 Dash to do something, and that's or 10,000 Dash, that's above our limit. We can't do it. Why not? That would create a lot of value. So when we increase the supply, in theory, what you should be doing is also increasing the demand. So whereas your ceteris paribus assumption of increasing the supply is going to decrease the price, well, that's only true if you expect nothing from what you increase the supply of currency for to come about. But if that increase in supply also prompted an increase in demand for the currency, then you're back. So you went down here, but now you go back up to this new demand curve. They'll call this D2, and this is D1. This is D1, and then this is D2, or Q1 and Q2 rather. And now you're up here. So what's the price then? Now you're up here. So you were here. You increase the supply. That theoretically decreases the price of the thing, but you also increase the demand for the thing because you employed some people who created value, whether that's marketing or actual utility in the coin. And now you're back up here to above the price that you were at before. And then one other thing to just know about these supply and demand curves is if you notice, price times quantity is market capitalization. So let's say this is whatever we have right now. We'll just call it 10 million. 10 million dash, 10 million dash. That's our currency supply. Or maybe here, 10 million. And then we'll call this 20 million. We go beyond the limits. We're increasing beyond the limits. We're not supposed to go beyond the limits. Well, we increased from 10 million to 20 million. And the price could go up. It could go down based on the demand. But what you do know is that the quantity went up. So market capitalization equals price times quantity. So let's say the price of dash today is whatever, 28. Multiplying 28 by 10 million, or multiplying 28 by 20 million, what gives you the bigger number? Multiplying 28 by 20 million. 28. Obviously, this would increase the market cap. So that's our first problem, right? So it's all about increasing the price, obviously, but you can also, or increasing the market capitalization. You can get there through increasing the price of the coins or the quantity of the coins. So even if your demand was, let's say that the demand didn't go up that high. Let's say the demand went up this high, so that it arrived back. You increase the quantity, and then you increase the price, and then you arrive back at the same price. But what you might not notice first is, okay, if you're back at the same price, but you're at an increased quantity. So the size of this rectangle, this is the market cap. Sorry, there's lots going on in this page now, in this drawing now. But the size of this square is the market capitalization, the area under the curve. And now, like, you can't use supply curves and do derivatives and integrals to calculate things in real life. These are all just mind exercises to organize your thoughts. But everybody can agree that the size of this rectangle, the size of this rectangle, our initial price and our initial quantity, compared to the size of this rectangle, if you add that little piece on, even if you're at the same price, you've increased your market capitalization. Small rectangle, bigger rectangle. And so, I guess, how much time do I have? Am I pretty much out of time? Should I take some questions at this point? Or?
20 minutes.
What's that?
You had an hour total, and we're just about 33 minutes. You're still about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I had that much time. So, yeah, let's take a question. Give me.
Saying demand is going up, and that's because of treasury spending, or is it because of any increased water work?
The demand goes up. So when I say demand goes up, what I mean is this whole set of people's preferences. Like, I might demand a certain quantity of dash at a certain price. If the price is $10 per dash, I might want to go out and buy a bunch, right? And if the price is $2,000 per dash, I might want a lot of dash, but I still, first of all, I can't really afford it. I can't justify that high of a price. So I'm going to demand less of it. So that's why this whole curve is.
I mean, the new demand being moved.
The new demand. So
that's a result of what treasury spending does.
Yeah. So let's use a simple example. Let's say that some superstar wants to. I always kind of think of the Elon Musk example because it's just like an easy thing. Let's say Elon Musk says, "Hey, I want to integrate Dash on X on Twitter, and we'd like some Dash for our engineers to do that." And so we create some Dash for them to do that. We give it to them, and then that marketing alone, like the the fact that Elon Musk, it's the Doge effect, right? That increases the demand for people in the society and in general. They're like, oh wow, Dash is doing some cool things. I want some Dash. That's what increases the demand. That's a shift to the right is an increase in demand. So like it's an increase of people in general wanting the thing. For any given price, I will demand this much. Or if I've increased the demand, now for that same price, now I want this much. Does that make sense? My drawing's terrible because it's.
Yeah, I have a question. How is it different from the treasury already creating more supply and assigning it to the projects via voting? You mean adding even more?
Yeah. So right now, so yeah, just to spell it out, right now we have a super block cap, meaning every month we are only allowed to create 4,000-ish Dash. Why do we have the cap? If we can find more people, and if people find us wanting to add and put their labor toward the Dash economy, then why limit ourselves to 4,000 Dash? Why not 5,000 Dash? Why not 10,000 Dash? Why not whatever amount of Dash? And obviously, this isn't like a proposal to do this tomorrow. We would have to do this in several phases. And there are several things that, in order to get the incentives right, there are several things that I would want in place, like the old M&O plan where that's an example, but that's not the only thing. But if you just think about it, like the masternode owners, they have that incentive to only try to throw money at things that are high quality projects. But right now, I think what our problem is we're not able to really capitalize on the potential that we have. So, like I said before, certain companies, they need if you're a startup and you need some money to get your project off the ground, you need a certain amount of startup costs to even have a chance at winning. So that's like in the millions of dollars. And so when people like Sven are getting pitches from people, they're not gonna even they're just gonna look over Dash because Dash has peanuts, right? We don't have anything to work with. We have what is it? 4,000 times 20. We only have hundreds of thousands of dollars. We don't have millions of dollars to work with, and that keeps us out of the game. And so that makes entrepreneurs go to venture capitalists instead, because they have millions of dollars. And how they got those millions of dollars, that's kind of a deep rabbit hole. But in the end, it's because they had access to financing from banks for the most part. And the banks, what did? They just created the money. So why can't Dash do that?
Are you thinking of the DIF managing this extra money or?
So I'm saying that we need more diffs. I'm saying we need the diff. They need to have more money. Obviously, if the diff is getting 8x returns on whatever they're doing, even if it was 2x returns, and even if that happens over years, that's still returns. That's still appreciation. And why limit that? So, see some hands here. Yeah, AJ. Yeah.
Okay, so I buy into what you have here on the board, but I think the example you gave was the worst possible example because you described a Ponzi scheme. So some figurehead with a lot of clout makes a tweet, pumps the stock, and then.
What I described was a marketing scenario, and I understand that you're not really, that to you kind of equals Ponzi scheme. A better example would be AJ and Jojobite want to start a company where they're offering real goods and services like cloud services, anything that AWS can offer, and they demand Dash in order to access those services and products. That makes, if anybody wants AJ's cloud services, call it
BNA.
AJWS, AJ Web Services, or BNNA, which is your actual startup, then they're going to have to find some Dash. They're going to have to get some Dash. That increases the demand for Dash in a real utility-oriented way. But that's not the only example. Any company on the planet, did you finish your question or did I address what you were going to ask? Go ahead and ask your question.
So, yeah, well, I just wanted more specifically, what do you think the solution is to create sustainable demand? Because the Elon Musk example is hype demand. That demand will go away.
Well, no, in that example that I gave, that was actually utility demand. Like if you can actually send Dash on the Twitter platform, that's utility.
Yes. Okay, yes.
So I focused on the marketing aspect and the hype, and I gave Dogecoin as an example of like just his hype alone was creating increased speculation demand. But there's also utility demand, and that's not to be ignored. That should be the main thing. So sorry, I didn't give a very good real life example, but like basically think of anything that venture capital, Silicon Valley is investing in. We could do that. We have the ability to create money to fund startups. We have that ability. We just need, I know this sounds political, just need the will. We just need the political will to do it. It's not political will, it's economic will. It's economic understanding, and it's understanding that people, you can create some Dash, you can create some money in general. This is what banks do, this is what fiat does. Fiat does this, we have the proof, they're already doing it, they're creating money, they're giving out loans to startups, small business loans. So I'll switch to my next slide because this kind of wraps it up. This is the scarcity versus abundance mindset. The scarcity mindset is, oh, the price is so low right now. The market, we're sinking down to 100. The scarcity mindset says, oh, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm afraid, and the money supply must be too high. We need to cut resources because we're bleeding money. So we need to cut our labor force. DCG needs to lay off a bunch of people. They all need pay decreases. And so that way we reduce our capital outflow because they're just selling it on the market and it's decreasing the price, which is true. But keep in mind, in theory, they should be building something that's also increasing the value and the demand for Dash, either now or in the future. So again, keep in mind that we're trying to build an economy that's not just a 5-year pump and dump thing or 2-year. We're building an economy for the next 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. And the things that we have built, they may be successful, they may not be. But the problem, if it's not successful, if we've thrown millions of dollars at DCG and, I don't know, some close to $1 million, I don't know how much incubator. We've sent some money to incubator as well. And the price just keeps going down. Well, that might be true. Like maybe we're sending it to the wrong people. Maybe DCG isn't actually helping to create demand for the currency. Maybe they're doing the wrong things. Maybe incubator is doing the wrong things. But that's not the problem of money creation in general. That's the problem of DCG and incubator. The issue in general of creating some money, creating some equity. I call it equity. I think of it as equity money because like stock, it can increase and decrease in value, and it's now nobody else's liability as opposed to credit, which is somebody else's liability. That's actually what crypto has in its favor, by the way. I lost my train of thought, but let me just continue on with the abundance mindset. The abundance mindset looks at the same problem. Oh, the price is low, but thinks there must be an opportunity here somewhere. There must be an opportunity. The opportunity is that if you look around, basically, if you think about this in terms of Fed, like Federal Reserve think, okay, the Federal Reserve in the United States, they have two mandates. One of their mandates is to keep unemployment low, meaning to have employment very high. Lots of people working, lots of people working. That's one of their mandates. The other mandate is to keep prices, price increases from increasing too much. So they want prices of goods and services to increase a little bit. They call it stable prices, but really they want a 2% increase in prices every year of goods and services, and they call that stable. Sometimes it will go like just recently they got out of control. Maybe they printed too much money. The banking sector expanded that money supply too much, and goods and services got a little out of hand, and now it went up to something like closer to 10% inflation. So they start decreasing the money supply, they pull back and increase the interest rates to make it harder for lending, things like that to happen. But so they have that mandate of employment and pricing. Well, we can have the same mindset, thinking we should have employment too, right? We should want our economy to have a vibrant labor force. And how do you do that? You increase the money supply to put people to work, and in theory, they should create some value from that work. But what's the unemployment rate of the Dash economy? 100%. Like, the world is 0% employed by Dash. So we're statistically, yes. The few people that are working in this room and in DCG, it's a total rounding error in the grand scheme of things, because we're a global economy. We're not limited to the United States of America. We can invest wherever we want. And so our unemployment rate is 100%. So what would the central banker thinking say that you need to do? Well, you need to increase, you can increase, or not even the central banking thinking, because I know they have a bad rap, but they are winning. But just the abundance mindset thing is saying, hey, we have 100% unemployment. Nobody's working for Dash. Let's put some people to work. Let's get that unemployment rate way down. Let's increase some Dash. Let's create some Dash for people. Let's add resources. So instead of cutting resources with the scarcity mindset, you're thinking of adding resources, increase the capital to attract labor. I had that ceteris paribus thing because I didn't want to forget about it, because that's the main sticking point with this whole argument is people are assuming in the cryptocurrency space, they have this ceteris paribus things, all other things equal. You increase the money supply, it decreases the price. Yes, that's true, ceteris paribus. But it's not true in real life, because in real life, when you increase the money supply, you're putting somebody to work for that. And that increases the quantity of the money supply, yes. But it can also increase the demand for money. Now you're up here at a higher demand. Even if you stay at the same price, even if that increased quantity of Dash doesn't increase the price, maintains it, you've still increased your market capitalization. And that is one of people's biggest problems. That's one of that's the scoreboard that matters. And it kind of does matter. Like if you drop down below 100 rank, people stop paying attention to you as a project. They start thinking that you're not a serious contender, even though we have the best technology. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People won't be interested unless you are high in the market cap rankings. And this is why, like Sam Westridge, she made a good point in one of our previous interviews with him on the incubator. We're not getting surpassed by proof of work coins. We're getting passed by proof of stake coins. Well, why are proof of stake coins passing us in the first place? they're passing us because they make an enormous money supply, and then they have very thin markets that that money supply is being used in, and so they can have an illusion of a high market capitalization because they have a bunch of people that are just holding on to the coins, the VCs, mostly, which have vesting periods, which always approach at some point because the VCs are thinking of Dash as, where did I have that slide? They are thinking of Dash as, or they're thinking of whatever coin their project they're doing as a company that needs to get revenue, and they're eventually going to divest from that investment. And so those prices will come down when their locking periods come up, when their vesting periods expire, and they can then sell their tokens or their equity shares on the market. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case with Dash. So with Dash, instead of so we create money independently in exchange for labor. That labor force creates public goods, and many companies, startups. We create startups. Then instead of divesting from that token or that equity, you just sell the money that you created, and that increases. You sell it for more goods than you could buy it for. So that's what increases the utility, the price, and the utility of the coin. Increase the demand for the currency itself, not the equity of a company. So, other questions, Ro? Yeah, go ahead. One time.
thing that you kind of didn't mention about all this is that Dash already does the concept of deciding as a DAO, innovation that we pioneered, whether or not it's net gain value, creation of value by creating some currency. We already do it, but we do it in a cage, maximum supply. You're kind of saying, let's free it from the cage and have that decision as a virtuous, decentralized group with virtuous incentives to only make the right decision that is creating value by creating the supply. Why not have that unlimited if it's actual value, if it's real value that we can actually determine in a decentralized, virtuous way?
Mm-hmm.
That's your point.
That's my point. Yeah, like basically get rid of the cage. If what we're doing can increase the value, in theory, which it can. So I just showed that.
How do you feel about two different questions? People who have been in the project or own Dash or did anything in the community whatsoever have always believed and had the assumption that it was reliable. They have a certain portion of the total supply. They have an exact calculable amount of value, and now you're interfering with what they've already owned. Their property. Right. You're now interfering with their property. How do you feel about that? And then the other question is, what do you think money is if it's not in relation to a supply total, if it's rather in relation to just some random value that's fluctuating?
Yeah, okay. So the first part of that question, basically, if I could summarize it, is there are a bunch of people that have invested in Dash with this understanding of a fixed supply that never moves, at least the terminal supply, right? The terminal supply never moves, or at any point it shouldn't move very much. What do I say about?
Already makes a decision. It's already a little bit.
Yeah, so I would say to that, what people that invested in Dash really want is they want the value of their portfolio, the value of their holdings to increase, right? So if there are two scenarios, either that person is actually going to they're going to be part of the receiving end of the increased supply, which for investors is probably not the case. So if they threw in some money, they bought 1,000 Dash a few years ago, And then they're not getting any more of that newly created money that I'm saying, hey, let's have an unlimited money supply. They're not getting any more of that, but there's more on the market. Then the only way for their portfolio to increase is the price. They can't increase through the quantity. So on an individual level. So for them, yes, it is important that you don't just increase the quantity and get back to the, you have to at least get back to the same price for them to feel good.
What if someone tells me that's unfair with my property? It's not fair.
Well, first of all, I don't think that that's how property works. Like it might be against a soft contract that they thought was in place in the past, but they also, at least for the past 7-8 years, they've known that masternodes do have this ability to change the rules, and so most people already have invested with that understanding. Although, granted, most of them probably thought this is unthinkable to increase the supply. But again, to the point, I don't think that they're interested in. They're not interested in, like, they don't care if we increase the supply of currency as long as that's actually leading to an increase of value for them. They just want the price to go up.
A lot of people do care.
Okay.
So kind of what people were saying,
Yeah.
like, we have this, of course, we love, we also have this ideal digital cash.
Mhm.
Like, it's not just value of my investment. Maybe I go to the.
I think what he's saying is the current cash that we have has been using this type of method for like becoming the thing. And so it's a pretty like, almost like a paradox thing you have to kind of spit on and think on for a while.
Every 90 years. And it's probably some new fiat becomes more receptive. It's just cyclical. It's not that it's perfect. It's in fact now the US is in the dollar.
Well, your initial point was like it's not just about investment. Is that?
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I would piggyback on that and saying, yeah, it's not just about an investment. I think people also want to see exciting new things like and the community growing. And how do you grow the community? Well, you give people jobs because people need jobs. Like people aren't just going to be working for free. Like they're not going to be part of the community if it's not growing. And so I think that's one of the things that Evan got right in the early phases is that he really brought on a lot of people and he put them to work, and it was an exciting, growing thing, innovating, but we need to continue that. We're not a new project anymore. So we need to find new ways of expanding and new ways of growing beyond just trying to convince people that, hey, our price is going to come back up at some point. Well, there's no reason to think that will ever be the case. I mean, one thing is we are just kind of floating in the sea of different of the whole cryptocurrency economy in a sense, and to some degree, it doesn't even matter what we're doing personally or in Dash, because we're just riding along with Bitcoin and Ethereum, whatever it's doing. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, regardless of what other cryptocurrencies are doing, if we can create value, then I think eventually that will result in a bigger community and a bigger, more exciting community, and value being created through investments. So I think that's pretty much all I had to say, and prepared for my slides. And this, I didn't really go over that. I didn't explain the demand curves and the supply curves very thoroughly, but hopefully, and you can check internet resources. And yes, like this is supply and demand curves are a concept that's accepted by most economists. I think that they can be abused. Like you can't do any quantitative things with this. It's just illustrating theories about supply and demand. And the main theory that I'm trying to say here is that the increase of the supply of currency does decrease the price all other things equal, but all other things are not equal. You increase the quantity of a currency in expectation that that increase in currency supply is going to increase the currency demand as well. And whether that goes up almost to the initial price, beyond the initial price, that we can't say from the supply and demand curve.
This debasement doesn't create demand. And
No.
essentially that's what it is.
Debasement doesn't create demand, but the reason that you debase the currency, in other words, increase the supply, does or can increase it. So yes, that's why these are separate curves. The supply curve, if it's vertical, which it is,
Right, we're out of time.
that can only decrease the price. But it's not the debasement that we expect to increase the demand. It's the demand itself from the thing that we created the currency for. So I think that's all the time we have. So thank you, everybody. I expect a lot of hate in the district.
I think that's the most
Yeah, close it up.
Ending the stream.
Yep.